Hey guys, it's Patrick Hall with Fstoppers here, and for the longest time I've thought there's gotta be a better way to hang paper or canvases, roll them down, but then roll them back up and move them so that you can make square rooms or wider areas and have backdrops that maybe hide all the ugly stuff in your studio or just give you more possibilities. Check this out. How freaking cool is that? Today, I'm gonna show you how I built this thing. So if you've been following our channel, you know that we have moved into a new space, actually two new spaces, and one of them is this 2-car garage. And I found that this is pretty challenging to work in for several reasons, mainly because it's kind of small. It's smaller than most of the studio spaces we've had in the past, but because it's so small, I also want to make sure I make everything as efficient as possible. So if you enjoy these photography studio build-out videos, go ahead and subscribe in the link below. I've made a playlist that I'm going to add all of these videos to. So if you ever find yourself building out a garage or a studio, you can reference these in the future, and hopefully some of these tips will be useful in your own studio. All right, so let me try to quickly explain what I'm trying to do because it's a little crazy, but I think it might make sense to you. Especially if you're in a tight space and you want to be able to have the most modular setup in your own studio. So I could set up the backdrop over here, but I have an air conditioner and it's going to have to be lower than the air conditioner or block the air conditioner. It's not ideal. If I set it up over here, it's going to be blocking half of the room, which is doable, but it's not great. But as I'm looking at this space, I started to think, well, I have this sound blanket here that's not perfectly 90 degrees. It's kind of off at an angle. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could set up a backdrop here that could articulate and make a really wide angle? So maybe I could put a camera in the far corner, and if we're shooting bigger sets or doing an interview, or we just want more scene in our frame, we wouldn't be stuck and confined to this little square room that also is blocking off this whole side of the room. Once I drop the backdrop down, it's going to make the space feel really, really small. So I spent a good part of a day or two going through every piece of grip that I could find on Manfrotto's website. I went to Koopa's website. I called up B&H. I talked to a representative, and I think he thought I was a little crazy. He's like, why would you want to do that? That doesn't sound safe. It's going to be hanging from the ceiling. Nobody makes anything like that. But I thought, could it be any less safe than having one of these permanently mounted in the ceiling? I mean, this is the industry standard pretty much for mounting backdrops. I thought, what if I just took one of these and mount it into the corner and have it to where it can articulate? And then on the opposite side, maybe I take one of these little ones and I mount this permanently. Maybe I have 2 or 3 of these permanently mounted. And then the idea would be that you could lock in the paper here, you could spin it here, you could spin it here. But unfortunately, I can't find any grip that's made for backdrops that actually articulates. I don't see anybody making anything like that. So let me show you what I have bought on Amazon. Hopefully I don't kill anybody. Luckily, a backdrop is only about 20 pounds. But I think this is going to solve a really interesting problem that I didn't even know that I have. And it's going to make my studio space a lot more usable. We'll see how many times I actually change this over the next couple of months, but I think it is worth doing it now because I know if I don't do it now, I'll never do it, and I'm going to be stuck with this space that feels a lot more claustrophobic. So in trying to research what could I put up in the corner there that would articulate smoothly and not weaken and be really strong and robust, I was thinking, maybe I could use some sort of projector, mount, but then all of those look kind of clunky, and a projector is only, supposed to be like 10 pounds, so that didn't seem very stable. And then I thought, what if I use a TV mount? But a TV mount is kind of clunky. And so I just kept going around and around trying to find the right piece. And then I came across this. And this is a ceiling mount for a punching bag. This thing is supposed to hold 600 pounds. I found a few variations that hold up to 1,000 pounds. That should be plenty of weight for what I'm doing. And then because it articulates, I don't know if you can really see this here, it spins in every direction. My thought is if I can figure out a way to mount my roller to this, I can spin this thing around freely, and then if I need to drop the other end of it, it will also pivot and allow me to hold the roll of paper on the ground and then spin it around. This should be, really versatile, but still really supportive. This little piece is nice enough because it's already got the 4 holes in it. I could pre-drill holes for these lag sleeves, I guess is what they're called, and these go up into the concrete, and then when you screw the screw through the bottom of this, it's going to open this up and it's going to hold it in so it doesn't go anywhere. The problem I have on the other end is a little unique. I'm probably going to use one of these smaller single hooks. Or if I want to be able to clear, I don't know if you can see it in this frame, but I have some lights that I might want to have the paper clear, and they sit down probably 2 or 3 inches. If you have anything in your studio that sits down a little bit like I do and it obstructs the angle of your paper or backdrop, this longer one should give me the clearance. So I think what I'm going to have to do with this is cut this with a saw, and then it's got 2 mounting holes here, but then the most ideal one's probably at the bottom, so I might have to make some extra holes. We'll see how that works out. So now that I've explained the problem that I have in the studio and the possible solution that I might have, let me go ahead, work on trying to build this and get it installed, and then if it's successful, I'm going to show you all the little parts and tricks and like some of the little problems that I faced so that you can do this quickly, easily, not have to run to Home Depot like I am time and time again. And most importantly, you can do it safely, because that is definitely the most important thing when you're hanging anything in your studio. You don't want it to come crashing down on you. So because I want our little hook here to hang off of our punching bag mount, I need to cut this edge off, but then I needed to make this hole so that it could mount right here in the middle. And to do that, this is called like a step-up bit. And this is one of the coolest little bits that I've ever bought, because you can hold it here, and then as you go further down, it makes the hole really small, which makes it nice for drilling, but then as you go down, it makes it larger and larger. So I find that I use this bit all the time. All right, next up, I need to cut this edge off so that I have my hook really nice and flat. I'm just gonna use a circular saw for that, and I have the metal plate on here. It's gonna get loud and messy, but hopefully this won't be too bad. Woo! All right, so I've cut off the L shape on one of these hooks, and it's left me with just this. And then I've drilled the hole in there so I could mount this in here safely. Let me go ahead and show you kind of the problem I'm gonna have is if I mount this in here, is that this now wobbles quite a bit. And my worry is that if this isn't locked in perfectly, if this hook just changes shape and direction just a little bit, I don't know if you can see that. If it just moves like this or like this, it's gonna cause the roller not to be sturdy, it's not gonna roll up and down. So the solution is, and I don't wanna have to go to Home Depot again, but you would put some kind of spacer in there. The spacers I'm gonna use, I'm just gonna use some of these washers and then mount the washers in here and hopefully get this really tight to where this piece doesn't move around. I don't know if that's too much play or if I need to find one more washer that's just small enough to really make that kind of stay in place. It doesn't spin too much, but I don't know if that's ideal. Once I have this done, I'm just gonna put this ring back on and lock this pin like that. And then now this piece is permanently attached. So that is our pivoting side there. All right, so now that I have my bracket built, I have to screw this into the concrete. I'm gonna need a really strong hammer drill to do that. If you're working with wood, you have it a lot easier. Before I screw this in, I need to go ahead and mount my little roller here. And the chain's gonna come down so that all of my chains are in one spot, but I need to figure out exactly where to position this so that it can spin around and not interfere with the ones that I already have mounted. So I'm gonna go ahead and get on the ladder, figure out how to mark this, and then I'm gonna have to drill 2 to 4 holes in my ceiling and get that all mounted. This is definitely the messy, fun part that's not so fun. Look how frictionless that is. Why does no one like Manfrotto make a piece like this for backdrops? Maybe they will after this video. Concrete is not fun at all. I've found that it helps to drill a small hole to start it and to get it deep enough, and then to slowly, maybe with 1 or 2 more bits, go larger. Also pray you don't hit rebar. That'll ruin your day for sure. So with these lag screws, you need a socket wrench. All right, now that should be plenty strong to hold up a single roller. I don't know that this would work if you needed to do more than 1 roller. I'm still a little worried that this is a little too wobbly, but we're very close. And so now I've mounted this so that this can tilt down so I can hold the roll of paper. It can also spin freely without hitting these. And if all of this works correctly, I can also mount another piece of paper here that will hide this and create a seamless edge. That's the dream. This paper here, I don't know if you can see this on camera, this paper may need to be pushed over a little bit more, but hopefully if it rolls right down here, there's enough of a gap here where this will be hidden, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, so I got my pivoting roller hung. Now is gonna be the most difficult part. I need to take this aluminum core, mount it up here, and then get on a ladder over here and figure out exactly where the second mount, the permanent mount, is gonna go in my ceiling. These aluminum bars are really great. I'll put a link in the description below. I get these off Amazon, and they're nice if you have something like a canvas backdrop that you need to tape onto this. But I also use them on all of my paper rolls because I just find that that cardboard ream, that centerpiece, isn't very sturdy and it will sag over time. If you've ever hung paper, you know that to be true. These aluminum bars, they're super portable, they're easy to ship, and they mount in these 3 pieces. I don't know if you can quite see this, but it's 3 pieces that screw together. And then I put them through the middle of everything. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to do this with just one person. Mount this on here, lift this up, and we'll see if I can get my markings. All right, so I don't know if you can see this, but I need to clear this light so that the paper doesn't hit the light. I also have to account for the backdrop being rolled onto my roller and how much thicker that is gonna be. So if I hang this up here, I can tell I'm gonna have to use the longest hook. I wish they also sold these individually in different lengths. They sell this one, that's the one I'm using over there, the shortest one, but they don't sell the longer ones on their own. So I'm gonna have to cut this 3 hook system, cut it here, so I can use the long one. And you can't really tell this, but if I ever did need to raise the garage door, this would not hit the garage, which is good. I'm just barely clearing that. But I wanna mount this to where this bar is 90 degrees, and then I'll probably spin this behind me and mount a second one so it's a little bit more obtuse. So this is where I probably want somebody to look at this to help me decide exactly where this should be so it's perpendicular. But something like that's good, and then it spins. All right, so I've got my second hook, my permanent hook installed. I did put a few little nylon spacers here, and I used some longer lag screws just so that I could get this parallel. That side over there is hanging a little bit lower than even the longest bracket, but I can assure you with these lag bolts and sleeves, this thing is definitely secure, and it's, you know, it's probably rated to hold a couple 100 pounds, and we're only gonna be holding, you know, 20 or 30 pounds max with a roll of paper. I can now take this off, and before I put my backdrop on here, even though I'm eager to do that, I now need to cut one more long one like this, and then I can move this over somewhere here and figure out the angle that I want for my second position. Of course, if you want multiple positions, you could use more of these hooks. I would love to have figured out a way to mount this just to some kind of track system so that I didn't have to have all these J hooks and it could just like rotate around. But the problem with that is you'd have to have the perfect bent radius depending on the length of your pole. So this pole I think is like 7 feet long. So I would need a track system that has a 7-foot radius, and finding something that specific is actually very, very difficult. I thought I could use some kind of strut material, but here in Puerto Rico, there's no companies that would bend the strut. So I think this is as good as it's gonna get, but in an ideal world, there'd be a photo company that would build some kind of track system specifically for common lengths of paper to where I could just mount some kind of, you know, rail system here and just literally pull it around like a curtain. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to have a few different stops where I just have to manually get on a ladder, unhook this, and rotate it. So now that I got this first one set up, let me quickly cut one more of these J-hooks, install the second position, and then I'll show you how this all works. And hopefully we'll get our gravity backdrop up and hung today because I am ready to be done with this project. Again, it would be really nice if somebody sold these longer versions instead of the short ones, because cutting this sends a lot of sparks around. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So now that I have my 2 hooks mounted permanently, it's time to put the backdrop on this and see if everything lines up. So there we go, we've created our 90-degree cove. I can now do a photo shoot in here by pulling our other paper down and everything, and it's just a more typical space. You could come over here and shoot from this angle, you could shoot diagonally. It gives you a lot of flexibility, but in some instances, especially if we need to put a table here and we want to review something that's really large, or we want to do, say, splash photography where you need a little bit more space than this, it would be nice to have this, you know, open up a little bit more. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go pull this up first, and then we'll do a little time lapse. And that literally took, with the ladder, 30 seconds, 90 seconds to do. And now you can see I have a much larger space. I'm able to block off a lot here. And again, if I put my second backdrop, which I'm gonna have to do later, right in front, I could create a nice seam here so you don't see any of these chains. That's my next project. All right guys, as I was wrapping up this video, a thought just came to mind. What if I didn't have to use the ladder at all to move this backdrop? How could I possibly do that if I had some kind of like stick or hook or something? And then I remember I have a few of these. Now these are made by Kupo, and they hold those rollers, but they hold them on top of a light stand. So you put this on a light stand and then you lift it up and you can fit a roller on here. But check this out. If this works the way that I think it's gonna work, you just put this thing right here on top of the tripod. Maybe I can get a pole that's like a dedicated one. Make sure all this is tightened down. And then I think I can just go right up here, unhook it, walk it over, and then rehook it. Like, how easy is that? So now instead of having to have the ladder and move my backdrop all around, I can just use this pole and do the exact same thing. So one final little tip for you. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel below. We're trying to hit 1 million subscribers this year. We're very, very, very close. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell to be notified when we have new videos. If you wanna see all of the pieces of gear that I use to build this out, I'm gonna put them in the link below. You can do the same thing, or if you have other ideas that might actually be better than what I did, go ahead and share those in the comments. I would love to see someone like Manfrotto just make an arm for that one side that would allow you to pivot it a lot easier, because I feel like this is a super useful technique. If you guys want to read articles about photography, head over to fstoppers.com. And if you want to check out our paid content, we've worked with some of the best photographers in the industry to produce really long 10, 15, 20-hour tutorials specifically focused on their specific genre of photography. We do everything from landscapes to architecture to headshots to swimwear to macro photography. If you guys want to check that out, head over to fstoppers.com/store and pick up one of our tutorials. I'm gonna get out of here, but if you guys want to follow along with some of the other studio hacks that I'm gonna do as I build out this studio, make sure you subscribe to the playlist in the description below, because I'm gonna have nothing but little tips and tricks that you can do in your own small studio space. I will see you guys soon.